without any further delay, let's begin our Tarpy Flats program.
Well, another controversial project. Tarpy Flats is actually two projects. The first is what was filed during the builder's remedy period because the county had not submitted its housing element on time. And that project is 80 single-family homes and 20 affordable housing. The applicant subsequently revised the application to include 725 units, which has generated the controversy that we'll be hearing about today. We have 3 speakers. I have condensed their resume in the interest of time. Our first pro speaker is Michael DeLapa. He is the executive director of Landwatch, Monterey County. He he founded the organization in 1997 along with Becky Shaw and Brad Zeeb. He's had a long career as an entrepreneur, and he has a master's of business administration and public management from Stanford Graduate School of Business and Public Management. He also holds a Master of Science and Bachelor of Science degrees in biology from Stanford as well. The other pro speaker is Laura Davis. Laura is currently the Deputy Director of Landwatch. She's been on staff since 2024. Prior to joining, she was on the Board of Directors. She's an attorney and currently teaches an advanced writing seminar in law school. Our con speaker is Andrew Hawryluk. Let's call him Andy. That's a difficult last name. He has a PhD in electrical engineering from MIT. He retired from Ultratech in 2018. He has received numerous awards, including the 1986 DOE Award of Excellence and the 2009 SEMI Award for Contributions to Semiconductor Manufacturing. So to begin with, we will start with Michael DeLapa, and if our speakers would come up here and join us on the platform.
Great, thank you very much for having me today and having Laura Davis as well.
Good to see you.
Andy, good to see you. We're really grateful for the opportunity to speak and to share with you Landwatch's position with regards to multifamily workforce housing and how it relates to this particular piece of property. Before we begin, I want to tell you a story, nonfiction. Today we're talking about a property that looks like a blank canvas. It's not. In 2010, 15 years ago, the property was slated for development. Fast forward to 2024. The county misses the deadline for their housing element, triggering a law called the Builder's Remedy that further greenlights development. The property owner files an application under the Builder's Remedy. It's imperfect, undesirable in many ways, low density, luxury housing, but completely in line with the existing legal framework. People are unhappy with it, but the law is what it is. The developer then expresses an openness to modifying the project so that it will benefit the local community. We think that's a really good deal, especially for people who live in the Salinas Valley and work on the Monterey Peninsula. The land gets developed under every applicable legal framework. The question is, who should benefit from the development? We think working local families. In this presentation, we'll explain the 2 existing development proposals, why we support the higher density project, and why we hope you will too. So this is the agenda. I'm going to just tell you quickly about Landwatch. Who here does not know about Landwatch? Raise your hand if you don't know us. Okay, so just a couple. I'll be quick. Then we'll give you an overview of the parcels. Laura will talk about the legal framework. I will then discuss site considerations and environmental review and the pros and cons. So Landwatch has been around, as Janet mentioned, since 1997. Our mission is to create a model of sustainability. We've worked on a lot of projects over the last 28 years. I want to mention a few of the ones we've helped lead on in terms of land preservation. The Armstrong Ranch with the establishment of the urban growth boundary in Marina, Marks Ranch, which led to its purchase by the Mixer Land Trust, Fernie Ranch, Rancho Los Robles, which was a lawsuit that we won last year, Seaside East, which is currently a lawsuit that we're involved in, and of course I think many of you know about Monterey Downs. So we have in our DNA to work on land preservation, but we also have in our DNA to work on housing that's affordable to local working families. We have about 1,000 members and a very deep bench in law, science, etc. So in an ideal world, property that is open space would be preserved and there would be plenty of city-centered housing for workers, but we don't live in that world. The project that we're going to talk about today was identified in the 2010 general plan as a affordable housing, as developable with an affordable housing overlay, and Laura will go into the details. The builder's remedy allows for 80 low-density, large single-family homes, and the alternative, which is currently baked into the housing element, is 725 more affordable, higher density homes and apartments. So here's an aerial view of the property. You can see it's surrounded on 3 sides by development. To the north, heavily commercialized Monterey Airport and Garden Road. To the west, housing in the city of Monterey. And to the south, 168 home sites from Montera, plus 42 additional semi-deed restricted homes on the Oak Tree Views project. So there's quite a bit of development in this area already. Now, Laura's going to go into some of the legal issues related to the 3 frameworks that apply to this.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm going to speak now about the general plan, the builder's remedy, and the policy element. So the first legal framework is the general plan. As Mike mentioned, under the 2010 general plan, this property was already designated for development. So under the resource conservation designation, that allows for 1 unit for every 10 acres. So on a 90-acre parcel, that would be 9 units. And then under the affordable housing overlay designation, which also applies under the 2010 general plan, up to 30 units per acre are allowed if the property meets certain specified affordability percentages. So that means that right now, under the 2010 general plan, this property could develop with 2,700 units. The second legal framework is the builder's remedy, which applies when a jurisdiction is out of compliance with its housing element. Monterey County is currently out of compliance because they do not have an adopted or approved housing element. They're still working on their draft. So that means as long as that's the case, the builder's remedy applies. And essentially, under the builder's remedy, development that otherwise wouldn't be possible under existing zoning is allowed, as long as a certain percentage is dedicated to affordable housing. So here's an image showing the builder's remedy application for Olmsted Rd for the proposed development. You can see that there are 80 standard large lot single-family homes on about 45 acres, 20 affordable apartments on 13 acres, and the application does not include a fire station. The third legal framework is the housing element. Under state housing law, the county is required to plan for 3,326 units, so that's the number in the upper right-hand corner. And you can see that it's also broken down into various income categories in the different columns. So for Monterey County, 1,070 have to be very low income. The state also requires a buffer of at least 15% because not all sites in the housing element will be developed. You can see that the Olmsted Rd property accounts for a sizable portion of the county's total in every income category. But most importantly, without the Olmsted site, the county would fail to reach the 15% buffer for very low income. So that means if the site comes out, the housing element, the current housing element draft won't be in compliance with state law. The state could not approve it. So the county would have to scramble to come up with a new draft that includes new sites. They would have to find new sites to cover the difference to reach the 15% buffer. And that would delay adoption of the housing element even further, and it would open the door for more builder's remedy applications on this property and on similar properties until the county has a compliant housing element. And unlike other sites that the county could include in the housing element, Olmsted is actually likely to be developed because there's developer interest. So that makes it a more valuable site in the housing element draft. The site's proximity to resources, such as economic and educational opportunities, also help satisfy AFFH requirements, which are required under state law. Affirmatively furthering fair housing means that affordable housing can't be shunted to low resource and low opportunity areas. It needs to go in areas where historically disadvantaged groups can enjoy access to the same resources as advantaged communities. So here's a graphic showing the site plan for the housing element. You can see that the portion proposed for development is significantly smaller than the affordable housing overlay parcel, and that's because the developer has agreed to use a much smaller footprint. And you can see that it also includes a fire station. I'm going to hand it back to Mike now to talk about site considerations and environmental review.
Okay, so we know there's going to be significant environmental review of this project, and we've taken just a quick look at a few of the factors that would have to be considered under CEQA. This is one dealing with biological resources. We've consulted with the biological experts in our area on both the habitat types there. There's two really critical ones, the vernal pools and amoeba fields. Those are in the blue on the far west side of the property. They're tentatively mapped. There's also a wildlife corridor that is used, and that is the green area. You can see that through the property itself doesn't work so well because of all the development where the airport is and all around that. So most of the value as far as wildlife habitat is to the east side of the property, and the habitats that we're trying to protect are also on the east side, which are left out of the housing element. So that's a good thing. There's also a question about fires and fire hazards. The fire hazard areas have been mapped by the state throughout the state, and these are the new maps. And this map shows that the property in Tarpy Flats has the same fire risk as all the rest of the property that surrounds it, except for Fisherman's Flats, which is in red, but it's all high fire risk. So having a fire station there makes a lot of sense. Having thoughtful access plans, it will make sense. All this will have to be addressed in a traffic report and wildfire assessment. We also looked at the Monterey Airport. It's pretty clear that the development will not be inhibited because of the airport. It's outside the safety zones. It's outside the noise area. There's tons of other residential developments that are in this area, so that's unlikely to be a problem. These are some other considerations that will come up under CEQA, and I really want to highlight climate because that is a key part of what Landwatch is involved in. And by having people move closer to their jobs, their footprint, their climate footprint, the greenhouse gases is actually reduced. Greenhouse gases is usually a function of VMT, vehicle miles traveled. So this will all be carefully analyzed. We have a climate scientist that we consult with at Berkeley. Turns out my wife is a climate scientist. She was on the international panel on IPCC. So this is something we will dig in very carefully, but it's quite likely that the climate impacts from the housing element project, the higher density project, will be less than under the low density builder's remedy. So we've just summarized in this slide kind of the costs and benefits. You know, there's less acres developed under the housing element option. There's more housing that will be affordable to our community, which is key both in terms of the multifamily market rate housing, townhouses, and also in terms of rental units. Rental units are incredibly important for people that work in our community because most of them cannot afford $1 million homes. So really this is a big part of why Landwatch has worked with the developer. He has a commitment to working with the community to do further site design to address the issues that we know will come up under CEQA, to reduce impacts and to mitigate to the extent possible. So again, in conclusion, this property has been identified for development for at least 15 years. There's a builder's remedy application that will create low density housing that will be unaffordable to our community. There is a housing element option that we've worked with to have higher density development that we think will be less impactful in terms of climate, and we think it will be, and vernal pools and other resources, and we think it will be much more beneficial to our local workforce. So what you can do if you're interested in getting more involved, of course, go to our website. We have a variety of materials on our website. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and then we will inform you of when there are opportunities to engage. We've been engaged with the housing element process ever since it started, so that process is still ongoing, and we'll let you know. A small donation would make us feel great. So if you want to make a small donation, actually a large donation would make us feel great. And if you want to volunteer your talents, there's a lot of people in this room that have talents. If you think that's something you'd like to lend to us, we would be very grateful. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about the project.
So that's the name of our organization. We're a 501(c)(3), and I was going to tell you that don't worry about spelling my last name. I was 14 before I could spell it. We are a 501(c)(3) organization, and our website is called SaveTarpyFlats.org, not .com. I keep telling people .com, so I apologize to anyone who I've misled. It's just been forever, many people. This is what you'll see on the website. Once it's gone forever. Glenn is a member of our organization. He's taken pictures of Tarpy Flats, and he's a photographer, and he'll pass around some pictures of Tarpy Flats. This is what we have today. And Michael is right. This area was designated for affordable housing a decade ago or more. That doesn't make it right. Okay, I just want to, I agree with everything that Michael is doing. We need affordable housing, but I also do want to maintain some land that is pristine and has some historical significance. So along those lines, I think Michael and I are working in similar fashion. We may disagree on this particular parcel of land, which is fine. We're adults and we can have disagreements, but I want you to know that we are in favor of affordable housing. Our group, who are in our group? We have a group of concerned citizens throughout Monterey County. It's not NIMBY, it's not the people right around Tarpy Flats. We have over 400 people who've joined our petition online. About a quarter of them live within a mile and a half of Tarpy Flats. Okay, so I'll agree to that. So we're the ones who are most impacted by what's going on at Tarpy Flats, and we should take an interest. If we don't, then what the hell are we doing? But the remainder of the people are from various cities from the community. And you can see the list there. We even have people from San Jose, from Sacramento, from Pasadena, and these are probably tourists that came to the area, sat down at their hotel, pulled up Google, and we saw one of our ads. And that's my speculation. Nobody tells me how they heard about us. But we have 300 people that are on our website who've petitioned the state, who petitioned the commissioners in Monterey County, who have said they don't want to see this development. It's people from all around the area. Who are we not? And I just mentioned it. We're not against affordable housing. Every presentation I've made to the county, I've explicitly started with that statement. We are not against affordable housing. We want it to be sensible. And our ultimate goal is to identify these lands, buy them, and transfer them to the Big Sur Land Trust or an equivalent organization. I don't have any ties to the Big Sur Land Trust. I hear about them. They're a good organization for what I can tell. But our goal is to preserve the land. The Big Sur Land Trust has confided in me that what they want to do is have a wildlife corridor that stretches from Jacks Peak Road all the way down to Ryan Ranch, and this land would be right smack in the middle of it. Their goal for years ago was to buy this land, but you know, they need money. So where is Tarpy Flats? Michael already pointed it out. It's south of the airport. You can see Highway 68 over there. Olmsted Road leads right into the airport. So the area that I've identified as Tarpy Flats, south of 68, and reaching out to Via Mil Paso, Olmsted Road, all the way out to the 218 intersection. That's Tarpy Flats, okay? Now, there are two RENA plans for Tarpy Flats. There's the city plan and the county plan. Michael did a very nice job of talking about the county plan. That's the triangle and the rectangle that's on the left side of this slide. That's for 725 housing units. This irregular shaped land is what the city wants to do right next door. So they'll be adjacent to one another, probably connected by some roads. And together, there are over 1,300 housing units on this property, okay? That's the plan between the city and the county. And frankly, they don't talk to each other. The fact that one put the plan first and the other one came later, they don't talk to each other, you know that. But let's talk about how big is 1,300 housing units. In comparison, I got this from Tom, thank you, Tom. The city of Delray Oaks has 709 housing units. We're talking about 1,300. The city of Delray Oaks is scattered over 672 acres. We're talking about 1/10 that area. So just imagine in your mind what that means. That kind of development, that many additional housing units in such a concentrated area, which actually concentrated area is a good thing for affordable housing developments, but that additional level of housing is like adding another city. So why is the development of Tarpy Flats wrong? Well, environmental issues. Tarpy Flats has federally protected plants and animals, and Glenn will talk to you about how many bears he's seen there, and coyotes and raccoons and yada yada yada. There's just a lot of. I grew up in Brooklyn. Please excuse me. There's a lot of federally protected animals and federally protected plants throughout that area. And that's mapped by the Department of California Fish and Wildlife. It's not me. All right, so I think that they probably know what they're doing. Wildfires, the region already has a very high risk of fire. And if there happens to be an evacuation through Olmsted Road onto Highway 68, thank you. Yeah, the way it is now is horrible. Can you imagine the additional traffic? It's going to be the Pacific Palisades all over again and worse. Water and sewer, there is no water and sewer there. They'd have to bring it in. And again, this is for affordable housing. They're going to have to spend all that money to bring the water and sewer in. That's a cost. How is that consistent with affordable housing? Traffic, right now, that intersection sees 25,000 car trips per day through that intersection. It was designed for 16,000. You add these housing units, it's probably going to increase by 5,000 to 6,000 car trips per day. That'll bring it up to about 32,000, which is twice what it was designed for. And then they're planning on putting in the rotary in, which I think there are mixed feelings about the rotary. Then finally, archaeological. Tarpy Flats is a site of cultural importance to the Native Americans here. Let me go back to this slide here. The Big Sur Land Trust purchased that land over there. That's next to the lands that we're talking about for Tarpy Flats. They purchased that land and donated it to the Native Americans because it's of its cultural significance to the Native Americans. And all this land has similar cultural significance to the Native Americans. So we like to expand on that, donate it to the Big Sur Land Trust, and have them donate it to the Native Americans. So I talked about traffic, talked about archaeological issues. What is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment? Nobody talks about this. It's an analysis of the housing needs by the city and/or county, actually by all of them, all counties in the state. It's a recommendation to which housing needs are needed, a recommendation as to where to build these units, and then it's on an 8-year cycle. Every 8 years, you have to regurgitate this. The city submitted its RENA plan in December of '23 on time. Congratulations, city. You did a great job of doing it. You didn't tell us about it. I'm sorry. But we learned about it after it was already approved. So c'est la vie. The county submitted its RENA proposal twice already. Both times the county RENA plan has been rejected by the state. That should tell you something about the quality of their work. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. How is affordable housing funded? I'll talk about this a little bit now and a little bit later, but by allowing a developer to build 4 profitable houses, he takes the profits from those 4 houses and then builds an affordable house. And I'm going to give you an example of exactly what Michael talked about in the that the developer wants to do for Tarpy Flats. He's going to build one 600 square foot apartment, and he's going to build 4 for-profit homes that are 4,300 square feet each on a 1/4 acre of land. Now think about the logic here. For one 600 square foot apartment, you need an acre of land. And you're going to let the developer build 4 4,000 square foot homes at $1,000 a square foot. He's making a nice profit on this. But does this make any sense? If we need affordable housing, and we do, I think there's a better way to fund it. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in a moment or two. But this is a travesty that we're actually using so much land for one affordable house, one affordable apartment. How is Tarpy Flats included in the RENA plan? The county hired some consultants from LA. And I'm sure they showed up here for at least a day, but we paid them $2 million. The consultants claimed that Tarpy Flats has a supermarket within 1 mile. Well, that's a 7-Eleven gas station. I'm sorry, but that's not a supermarket in my opinion. There's a doctor's office within 1 mile. That was closed 5 years ago. It was in the same mini mall that the 7-Eleven is in. You may remember that doctor's office. The school within a 1/4 of a mile, for those of you who know the Fremont School, that was closed 5 years ago. It's now a charter school. It's not a public school. Mass transit is within walking distance. Well, it's at the airport. You got to walk across 68 to get to it. And maybe you can do that now, but if you put a traffic circle there, you can't do that. So based on these wonderful attributes, the consultants claimed that Tarpy Flats was an excellent location for development. And they used points from this to justify that. And we have argued that points should be negative, not positive. So last month, the state rejected the county's proposal for Tarpy Flats for the second time, okay? The HCD is the Housing and Community Development of the state. They considered public comments, including those from the Save Tarpy Flats organization, and that's where our website, the 400 petitioners, inundated the state with letters, everything. The county, so they heard us and they said, don't do that. The county is to engage with the public on revisions to the housing element, which they've been reluctant to do, I'll be honest with you. Describe and list existing and planned water and sewer capability. There is no water and sewer there. And I apply for environmental constraints to identified sites. Again, I think this talks to the federally protected animals and species and plants that are there. Other things they talked about is identify sites that will be available within the planning period. If you've got to bring in graders for streets, for water, utilities, gas, electric, this is not going to be done in the next 5 years. And then the revised housing element needs to include an analysis of government and non-government constraints. And that's, again, the issue of federally protected lands and everything else. Federally protected wildlife and plants, excuse me. So you already heard much of this from Michael. The county needs 1,070 extremely low housing units. That's 50% of AMI. AMI is the average median income, I think. And median income for County of Monterey is 100,000, if I remember correctly, Michael? Yeah, about 100,000. So this is for people who are earning less than $50,000. I mean, those are people who need help. The county needs 700 in the 50 to 80% range, okay? So I like to do things easily. I'm going to lump them together and say we need 1,700 affordable housing units, 1,770 affordable housing units. The county also identified they need 1,556 moderate or above average housing units, and many of those are like 500 or so are already in the pipeline. The permits have been, applications have been filed, permits have been pulled, construction's happening, things like that. So the above average, the additional above and average units that need to be funded or built, probably on the order of about 1,000. But to support 1,770, remember that 4-to-1 ratio I talked about a few moments ago? You need to approve 7,080 moderate to above moderate housing units, 4 times 1,770. The county has to approve 7,000 above average housing units to build the affordable units that we need, so that the developers can have enough money to build those units. This is an incredible waste of water, of land, of resources. If you're trying to help 1,700 people, why are you building homes for 7,000 people who don't need the help? So, and then on top of that, the county has to put a buffer in place on top of that 7,000, so they put in a proposal for 9,987 housing units. Basically, again, my position is that we have to permit 8,500 units just to be able to build 1,700 units. And to me, this is sacrilegious. I'm sorry, but I think this is an incredible waste of resources. And in fact, we had a meeting with Supervisor Daniels, that's on the bottom here. And she herself said she and all of the other supervisors believe that this 4-to-1 ratio is nonsense. And I think she had other adjectives for it too. But the point is, we have to come up with a different way to fund these things. Craig Spencer, the county senior planner, I one time asked him, how much support does a developer need to make a profit on an affordable house? Because that's, these guys are in it for the profit. They're not going to build something and lose money on it. And Spencer said, about $250,000, about $250K per affordable housing unit. And I went, okay. I have no knowledge about that number. I believe you. And we need to put in 1,770 housing units. How much is that? Well, $400 million over 8 years. It's $55 million a year in subsidies. Well, the county budget is $2.2 billion. So 55 million is 2% of the county budget. I'm not saying to move 2% over into this. There's no reason why we can't raise taxes. We can't raise real estate taxes, a tourist tax, sales, whatever it is. 2% is not a huge number. To raise $55 million a year and then give that to the developers to build an affordable unit without having to build 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 units that we don't need and we don't have the land or the water or the other resources for, I just think it makes far more sense to look at this with objective eyes. By the way, so the planning commissioners and the supervisors all know that this 4-to-1 ratio, it's been in existence for what, about 40 years? Yeah, about 40 years. 40 years ago probably made sense. We had plenty of land, had water, everything. Not so much now. So where are we now? We have a lawsuit filed with the city to remove Tarpy Flats from their arena plan. It's in their backup plan, and we think it's not needed. And with the recent letters that we got from the state objecting to Tarpy Flats in the county arena plan, we think that we're in a good position to have the city remove it from their arena plan, although it requires us to go to court, and we've filed a lawsuit against them. We've petitioned both the county and the state to remove Tarpy Flats from its arena plan. We've done that, and we've done it successfully, but what's going to happen, we have to maintain the pressure on the county not to put it back on. There are other sites within the county. There's one in Marina, I think it's called Marina Blanco Triangle or something like that, that was taken off. They wanted it, so there are places that could backfill. So we've been successful in keeping it off the approved RENA plan to date. Our goal is to purchase the properties and have it donated to Big Sur Rantos. Plain and simple. I mean, I'm as transparent as I can be. I know Michael is. I don't mean to imply otherwise. You know, Michael has been a joy a few times that we've gotten together for coffee. I've enjoyed our interactions. Lastly, I'd like to thank the League of Winter Voters for hosting this discussion. You guys have led the United States in terms of advocacy for a century or more. And thank you. And if there's something here, like maybe getting the county to change the way it funds, you know, we'd love to see that happen. If you'd like to join our efforts, please visit savetarpyflats.org. And the last slide is, please help us preserve it, because once it's gone forever. And thank you, Michael, for... I guess we can take this so I don't trip over it.
That's a lot of data. It's kind of overwhelming. We will have questions, and Tama has the mic, so why don't you head to the closest person who's right behind you.
Thank you. Tom Raleigh again, lives in Fisherman's Flats, which is the neighborhood just to the west. We're next to Foothill, where former Foothill School was, which now has 7 charter classes. A couple of things that weren't mentioned here. At one time, the city of Monterey was projected to go all the way to Laurelis grade. And in 1983, how many of you lived here in 1980s? A few. So we got some old timers. The city of Monterey voters passed the Highway 68 area plan, which included places like Montera, where Andy lives, Pasadena, Bay Ridge, all of those, and included Tarpy Flats. It was never developed. It's county area. Also, the school site that Andy mentioned is actually within the city of Monterey, and that's why they have it within their housing element. The other,
I have a question.
yes, so I'm trying to provide some information that was not provided. So basically, and Andy mentioned this, putting 725 units of housing is equivalent to the size of Delray Oaks. How many of you travel on Salinas Highway frequently? You know it is packed. And what the proposal, Caltrans just approved the 9 roundabouts on Salinas Highway, and there's no money to build them. And we're already jammed. So what I'm saying is the infrastructure just does not support Tarpy Flats development, does not support traffic, and there's no water, and there's no sewer. So thank you.
Sylvia,
my question is this. It seems that everybody supports housing for the low income, but whenever something is identified, we reject it. Andy, do you have any proposal where we find places to build? If it's not in this beautiful place, it is a beautiful place, but it seems so hard to find a place to build. And I also agree 4-to-1 is not.
the question is alternative sites for affordable housing.
So, I'll come over here.
Sure.
So I'm not a city planner. I never pretended to be one. If you have a physics question, I'm happy to answer that. But I think Michael will be able to answer that. But here's my point. If you reject the 4-to-1 plan and focus on affordable housing, the amount of land that you need is not 1/4 what's been identified. It's probably closer to 1/10, because affordable housing can be put closer together. You can put a lot more of it together. So instead of needing 10,000 acres as we do now, you may need 100 acres or something on that order to support the entire county's affordable housing plan. I think if we were to look at it objectively and say, we're trying to solve a problem, and the problem is affordable housing and where to put it, what we've done is we've put a anchor on ourselves that says for every one affordable house, we have to find an acre of land. That's crazy. So if we were to go back and say, I want to look at this objectively again, and maybe this made sense 40 years ago, and I think it did, by the way, from what research I found. It made sense 40 years ago. But today, when we have less land, less water, all of these resources are limited, we have to be more efficient with the use of the land that we have. And I think if we were to approach it that way, we'd easily find the land that we have. And Michael?
Okay, so a few clarifications. The state explicitly rejects using inclusionary housing to meet your affordable housing number. So that's in state law. You cannot use the 4-to-1. So it's just not accurate that is what the county is relying on. Landwatch first got involved in the RENA process, I don't know, 4 years ago, when the original allocations were coming down from the state to AMBAG. We lobbied extraordinarily hard to reduce that number from about 4,000 plus down to 3,000. I mean, we were trying to get all the housing into cities as opposed to the county. So the early work on this, we were leading, and I don't disagree with Andy that, a lot of this housing that the county has identified and stuck with shouldn't be going in the county. It should be going into cities. But the 4-to-1 ratio is not a rule that the county has used to finance housing. I also want to mention that we have, in addition to myself and Laura, who's an attorney, and John Farrow, who's an attorney, and Christy Markey, who's an attorney, all of us have been working on trying to find places in Monterey County to locate housing for the last 2 solid years. So this is, every week we meet, every week we look at a map, every week we look at opportunity sites, every week we're trying to figure out how to solve the problem the county has. And it doesn't work to say no anymore. I mean, you really have to come to the county and to the state and say, okay, I want to remove this. I'm going to put in this. That has to happen, and that is, that's just part of the deal. So no is not an option.
But Michael, Lori, did you?
What? I have to leave at 1:30, so Tama, you can handle the questions from now on.
But let me just follow up. Michael, wouldn't you agree that it's easier to find 2,000 housing units than 10,000? If we only had to find 2,000 housing units, then 10,000, wouldn't that be a simpler task?
Of course, we are not big fans of the RENA process.
Thank you.
But that's a state law that has been passed on. So if you want to change that, we should lobby John Laird to change that law.
But
until we do that, this county has a set of requirements, and every day they don't meet them, they're open to the builder's remedy. Okay. Every day.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. I just want to add that right now the conversation isn't really about what the policy should look like. Should it be the builder's remedy project or should it be the higher density? The policy discussion should have been in 2010. If people don't think housing should go on this property, that conversation was in 2010.
On the higher density project, it looked like that the wetland areas were being preserved in the higher density. Can you maybe explain that a little more explicitly?
Sure, I'm happy to. I don't have the slide, but you could see that the vernal pools and MEMA fields have been mapped, and they're on the far east side of the property. They are outside the footprint of where the development would take place. So it would largely avoid all those. Similarly, it would avoid the wildlife corridor, which again is towards the east. It's not right there along that strip, which is impeded on the other side by the airport. So wildlife is not going to make a leap across that airport. So.
Hello. I just want to thank the high density, the housing element for dealing with some of the environmental pieces. We are going to lose some beautiful habitats, and I'm always on that side, except the reason there's so much traffic is that the price of housing is so expensive on the peninsula. Everyone's driving, and over time it's going up and up and up. And so it won't make, if we don't build housing, this is super close. I mean, this is, most of the other places in the county are way far away. Even more people on the highway, more on 68. So I really applaud that. And climate is the biggest issue out here. And if you don't know, I'm going to make a plug. The EPA is trying to remove the ability to regulate greenhouse gases right now. You can go online to the EPA endangerment finding and say, we won't be able to protect anything in California around greenhouse gases if this goes through. So please go make comment. And I don't know if I'm adding anything to this, but I think that's the issue, is price of housing has to happen now. This is very close.
We probably have time for one very quick question.
Hi, so I'm a retired social worker. I did HUD-VASH, homeless housing, and McHome for homeless mentally ill. And what I appreciated with scatter site housing, it worked really well for the people integrated into the neighborhoods. So I know that in like the plan before, there was scattered site housing without Tarpy's flat. What happened to that?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by.
There was, a couple of hearings that I went to. The last one, they put Tarpy's flat on, but the one before Tarpy's flat was off, and they had housing sites all over the peninsula integrated into communities without being one dense project.
I don't know. We ended up putting 800 units at the mouth of Carmel Valley, so and a number more in other areas. I mean, there's some big projects in Salinas still that are on the map that are going to have large numbers of houses. So
yeah, I'm just curious. So yeah, it was for county. It wasn't for the cities.
Yeah. But I just want to say that prior person who spoke previously, Susie Wooster, is an environmental scientist on the faculty of CSUMB. So she's somebody who knows climate and knows wildlife.
Thank you all so very much, excuse me, for coming and sharing your time with us today. I'd like to thank our speakers and give them one last round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
So as someone who drives 68 all the time, that is totally overly impacted.
Well, you have to look at the people are moving from Salinas to here. It's not, they're not all going to be new people here. The idea is to get people